The Terminator. What can I say about this movie that hasn't already been said? Probably nothing, but that's not going to stop me from trying. So let's pretend you've been living in a cave for the last 36 years. The Terminator is a 1984 science fiction movie starring Arnold Schwarzenegger, directed by James Cameron. It's about a cyborg assassin sent from the future to kill Linda Hamilton to prevent her from starring in Beauty and the Beast. Oh, my bad. To prevent her from giving birth to the future leader of mankind. To say this movie was successful would be a huge understatement. A lot of people argue it's the movie that kickstarted Arnold Schwarzenegger's career, but I contend he was well on his way with Conan. But it most definitely launched James Cameron's career. The only thing he'd done up to this point was Piranha 2. Okay, so before we get into the movie, I need to address a controversy. Writer Harlan Ellison accused James Cameron of plagiarism, claiming that the plot of Terminator was a blatant ripoff of his Outer Limits episode, Soldier, which is about a soldier traveling through time. Now, people have argued for years as to whether or not there's any veracity to Ellison's claims. So I decided to watch Terminator and the Outer Limits episode side by side, and we'll see if there's any similarities. Wow, I honestly thought that would take longer. Okay, so on to the movie. One thing I love about this movie is the setting, alright? It's 45 years in the future, and I think that's smart. Because I can't tell you how many dystopian movies I watched growing up where it starts out with, "It is the year 1996. But, in this setting, we still have 9 years before the world turns to shit. But this is a low-budget film, and sci-fi sets are expensive, so they pull out the old 80s hat trick of time travel. Anyways, so Arnie just pops up in LA, in all his Arnie-ness, with all his Arnie parts just flapping in the wind. And I remember watching a behind-the-scenes interview as a kid that still cracks me up to this day.
Well, Terminator for me is a very important and a very different role. It's not with where you show the body or the muscles or so on.
Really, dude? Really? Really? And Arnie immediately runs into these three rejects from a Twisted Sister video.
Nice night for a walk, eh?
And demands their clothes for some reason. I'm guessing he's not programmed with fashion sense.
Hey, I think this guy's a couple cans short of a six-pack.
Your clothes. Give them to me, now.
And I think we all recognize this lovable scamp. R.I.P. B-Packs. Meanwhile, in a different part of the city, our hero Kyle Reese drops in. Literally. And another thing I give this movie credit for is its storytelling. A lot of movies feel like they need to hold your hand while they feed you information. The Terminator does not do that. We spend a large portion of this movie not knowing who Reese is, why he's here, what his motives are.
What day is it? The date?
12 May, Thursday.
What year?
It's just really good storytelling. That was completely fucked over by the marketing department.
I'm here to help you. I'm Reese, DN 38416, assigned to protect you. You've been targeted for termination.
Anyways, the movie makes it clear that Arnie has Reese at a disadvantage in terms of acquiring clothing and weapons. And that's because Reese is a lone resistance fighter with nothing but his wits to guide him, and Arnie's an unstoppable killing machine.
Which will it be?
All.
I may close early today. There's a 15-day wait on the handguns, but the rifles you can take right now. You can't do that.
Wrong.
But you're not supposed to know that yet. Just pretend you spent all of 1984 living under a rock, and then just drove straight to a movie theater, okay? Now let's meet Sarah Connor. She's a very sweet girl next door kind of character, working a dead-end job, blah, 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 nobody cares. Okay, let's see what Arnie's into. Well, he's just randomly killing women that happen to be named Sarah Connor.
Sarah Connor?
Yes.
Wonder why? It's a mystery, be patient. And what's Reese up to? Not much, he's just kicking back, lamenting about how much the future sucks. Okay, dude, we get it, your timeline sucks. Just be happy your world blew up before the Macarena hit.
tu cuerpo alegría Macarena, que tu cuerpo para dar una alegría y cosas buenas. Dale tu cuerpo alegría Macarena, Macarena.
Meanwhile, Sarah and her roommate Ginger are doing their best to enlarge that newly discovered hole in the ozone layer. Sarah gets stood up for a date by some random douchebag.
Hi, Sarah. Dan Morsky. Something's come up.
And even though we can't see him, you know this is the kind of guy that wore a sweater around his neck. So Sarah decides to go to the movies by herself, runs into Ginger's boyfriend Matt, who's coming over to have some premarital sex, so they can justify their on-screen deaths later on. And uh-oh, what's Reese doing? Okay, look, Beefcake here has already murdered several people in cold blood, but this is the guy we're supposed to worry about. Gotcha. So later on, Sarah hits a bar and realizes that Arnie's been a busy little beaver.
2 hours ago, 35-year-old Sarah Ann Connor was pronounced dead at the scene in her Santa Monica apartment. Sarah Louise Connor was slain by a lone gunman earlier today in her home.
And very quickly realizes that she's being followed. I guess maybe the audience is supposed to think that Reese and the Terminator are working together, and they drew straws on which Sarah Connors they were going to kill. I don't know. But it's still a good way to build tension. Meanwhile, Arnie shows up to Sarah's apartment, day late and dollar short, and is like, well, since I'm here, I might as well kill something. And I love how he comes in all stealth-like, but then immediately gives Matt the Loki treatment. And then we meet Traxler and Vukovich. Yeah, those are their names. They're the cops who've been tasked with investigating Arnie's handiwork.
There's a point to all of this. Look at the name there. Sarah Louise Connor. Is this right?
And these guys, even though they're minor characters, their chemistry is fantastic. They bring so much to this movie.
That coffee's 2 hours cold. Mm-hmm. I put a cigarette out of it. Did you reach the next girl yet? No, I keep getting an answer machine. Send a unit. I sent a unit. There's no answer to the door, and the apartment manager's not home. Call her. I just called her. Call her again. Give me a cigarette.
I think they could have been given their own spin-off show. Sarah gets a hold of geriatric Starsky and Hutch, and they tell her to just stay put.
Listen carefully. You're in a public place, so you'll be safe till we get there, but stay visible.
Because there's no way in hell that Arnie, who's been shooting women all day long, in broad daylight, would try something as crazy as killing her in a crowded nightclub with all kinds of witnesses. Holy shit! Reese is the hero! Wow, had no idea. And now you're about to see something that you will never see in any other 80s action movie. Yes, that's called a reload. And now we have the second most memorable line in the movie.
Come with me if you want to live.
This has kind of become Michael Baine's catchphrase.
Obviously, one of the lines that is a favorite of most people's, come with me if you want to live.
Come with me if you don't want paint on your clothes.
So Sarah decides that yes, she does want to live, and Arnie remembers that he's bulletproof and gives chase. And the next 10 minutes is just an awesome game of cat and mouse. This is just real, solid filmmaking. This is one entire sequence. It goes from very intense action to very slow-paced tension and then back again. And right in the middle of it, everything comes to a screeching halt as Reese does a major exposition drop.
Reese. Why me? Why does it want me?
Let me explain.
There was a nuclear war. A few years from now.
No, there is too much. Let me sum up.
A supercomputer called Skynet takes over, wants to wipe out humanity, but Sarah's unborn son, John, becomes the leader of the human resistance, but Skynet says fuck that, sends a Terminator back in time to kill his mother, and John, being the brilliant military leader that he is, decides that one lone naked guy is more than enough to keep his mom safe.
Everybody got that?
And Michael Bain and Lena Hamilton, their performance in this movie is just outstanding. Sarah's reactions are 1000% believable.
The 600 series had rubber skin. We spotted them easy. but these are new. They look human. Sweat, bad breath, everything. Very hard to spot. I had to wait till he moved on you before I could zero him.
Look, I am not stupid, you know. They cannot make things like that yet.
Not yet. Not for about 40 years.
Are you saying it's from the future?
One thing that irks me in movies like this is where, you know, a character learns that magic is real, time travel is real, aliens are real, ghosts are real, whatever, and they're just like, oh, okay, cool. And Reese is not this noble goody two-shoe Boy Scout type. He's very tweaked, kind of unhinged, and focused totally on his mission. I mean, he's just basically like, look, bitch, I was told to keep you alive. Nobody said shit about keeping you conscious. So the chase comes to an end, the cops show up, and even though Arnie's like 10 feet from his target, he decides to bail. Which makes sense. We're only 45 minutes into the movie. We gotta pad the runtime. So Arnie heads back to his apartment to do some repair work, and I want to talk about this scene. Over the years, it has been unfairly criticized. I've heard a lot of complaints that it's cheesy, it looks fake, it's not realistic. Does it look fake? Yes. Can I tell that that's a model? Yes. But it still looks awesome. This movie was made in 1984 on a $6 million budget, and they took the time to make a fully detailed animatronic head of Arnold Schwarzenegger for a scene that is less than a minute long.
That's a man's head.
That's phenomenal. Okay, let's compare it to a 21st century film with CGI and a huge budget, like The Mummy Returns. Really, guys? $100 million in this PS2 cutscene's the best you can do? Stan Winston is a god! End of discussion. So anyways, Reese gets interrogated by Dr. Silberman, who goes on to become the franchise's de facto comic relief.
So Reese is crazy?
In technical terminology, he's a loon.
And I love this part. Sarah is still not convinced that Reese is telling the truth. And rightly so. That is a hell of a story to take at face value. And Reese gives some more exposition about the future and time travel.
Why were the other two women killed?
Most of the records were lost in the war. Skynet knew almost nothing about Connor's mother. Her full name, where she lived. They just knew the city. The Terminator was just being systematic.
Specifically why he and Arnie had to show up naked.
Didn't you bring any weapons? Something more advanced? Don't you have ray guns?
Ray guns?
Show me a piece of future technology.
You go naked. Something about the field generated by a living organism. Nothing dead will go. I didn't build a fucking thing.
Okay. But this cyborg, if it's metal...
Surrounded by living tissue.
And even the detectives offer some plausible explanations as to Arnie's superhuman abilities.
Sarah, this is what they call body armor. Our TAC guys wear these. Stop a 12-gauge round. This other individual must have been wearing one under his coat. Feel that.
What about when he punched through the windshield?
He was probably on PCP. Broke every bone in his hand. He wouldn't feel it for hours. There was this guy once. You see this scar?
Yeah. But Arnie's about to shoot holes through all those theories.
I'm a friend of Sarah Connor. I was told that she's here. Could I see her, please?
No, can't see her. She's making a statement.
All right, guys, here it is. This is the moment we've all been waiting for. The line that defined Arnie's career.
I'll be back.
Ha! You did not gonna say that, did you?
That's what you always say.
I do?
Everybody keeps waiting for you to work it in. It's kind of like your calling card.
Over the years, I've heard people question if this is the first time he actually ever said that line. Yes, it is. Because in the script, the line goes, "I'll be right back." But Arnie's Austrian accent wouldn't get out of the way. Which is something The Simpsons made fun of with their Arnie parody character, Rainier Wolfcastle.
Up and at 'em.
Up and at them.
Up and at 'em.
Up and at them.
Up and at 'em.
Up and at them.
Okay, so this is my favorite scene in the whole movie. As a kid, I watched this with my dad, who was as much of a Schwarzenegger fan as I am. And when Lieutenant Traxler said this line,
"You'll be perfectly safe. We got 30 cops in this building.
Dad just kind of chuckled and said, yeah, we'll see. And then we spent the next 5 minutes trying to count how many cops he shot. And it became somewhat of a tradition with us. It's something that I still do to this day. My personal top score is 18, but I always lose count right here. I can already imagine some of the comments that I'm going to get. Guys, it's not real. It didn't happen. It's just a movie, okay?
Okay, they're talking about fictional characters. Fictional characters. Am I getting through to you at all?
So Kyle takes advantage of the situation and goes after Sarah, who is now all in, and that makes sense for the purposes of the movie. I think realistically she'd still need more convincing, but we can't spend the next 30 minutes trying to explain quantum physics to a waitress. So they escape from the police station and hold up in a storm drain all night, and through a flashback and Reese's own word vomit, it's hinted that he has a thing for Sarah, a woman he's never met.
So, was it John that sent you here?
I volunteered.
Why?
There's a chance to meet the legend.
Which is a little creepy. Not Paul from Cabin Fever creepy, but kind of a red flag by today's standards. Moving on. So they hold up in a seedy hotel, and Reese teaches Sarah how to make explosives.
Screw the end cap on. Very gently.
Dude, you probably should have told her that before you handed her the cap. Anyways, so you know how in movies where two characters are on the run, and one says to the other, you can't tell anybody where we're at, and the other character's like, yeah, sure, no problem, and then they immediately go tell somebody? Well, Reese steps out for 5 minutes, and Sarah just runs right to her phone and calls her mom, and tells them where they're at.
No, I can't tell you where I am, Mom. I was told not to say.
Oh, but honey, I need to know where I can reach you. You tell me to hide out up here at the cabin like some fugitive, and you won't tell me what's going on? I am worried sick, dear.
Okay.
But oh wait, that's not her mom.
I love you too, sweetheart.
Yeah, so one of the Terminator's abilities is to mimic voices. And apparently Arnie's really good at it, because Sarah had no idea she wasn't talking to her mom. But that begs the question, why is his default setting a talking cinder block?
It's now within our power to make war safe.
I don't know about that accent.
We can fix it.
So later on, Reese drops this bomb.
John Connor gave me a picture of you once. I memorized every line. Every curve. I came across time for you, Sarah. I love you. I always have.
And in true action movie fashion, Sarah rewards his honesty with sex. But let's take a second look at this scene through a more realistic lens.
Wow, that's sweet. Well, look, this whole Mother of the Resistance thing sounds like a lot of fun, but I really need to get going.
So after the obligatory sex scene, Arnie tries to ambush them, but his cover's blown by a dog. FYI, if my dog ever barks at you, I will automatically assume that you're a Terminator. Enjoy it. Oh, I love you so much. Oh my.
3 days later.
I love you so much. So we get one last awesome chase scene. Reese gets shot. Arnie gets run over.
My eyes, the goggles do nothing.
And then decides he'd rather be a trucker than a Terminator.
He's pounded down, loaded up and trucking.
Reese decides that blowing up this tanker full of gasoline, that's like 10 feet away from the woman he's trying to protect, is the best way to save her.
Why was I programmed to feel pain?
Reese and Sarah congratulate each other on a job well done.
Well, let's not start sucking each other's dicks quite yet.
And, oh, wait. And this is yet another example of the genius of James Cameron. Of course, we have to see what's underneath Arnie's skin. You can't spend the whole movie talking about it and then not give us a payoff. But why did he have Arnie get run over by that truck? To damage the hydraulics. Because Cameron knew there was no way he could make this skeleton move as fluidly as Arnold Schwarzenegger does. That is just brilliant storytelling. But I'm guessing he suffered some kind of a head injury or a stroke or something between the Terminator and Titanic, because Why the hell can't Rose share just a little bit of her precious store for Jack? So Skeletor chases them into a factory. Reese sacrifices himself. And dude just refuses to give up.
"'Tis but a scratch."
A scratch? Your arm's off.
No, it isn't.
Well, what's that then?
So Sarah joins the ranks of strong female characters like Princess Leia and saves herself. And gets her own badass line to boot.
You're terminated, fucker.
Why was I programmed to feel pain?
And then the movie ends with this bombshell.
Should I tell you about your father? Boy, that's a tough one. Will it affect your decision to send him here, knowing that he is your father?
Yeah, in case you ain't figured it out, Reese is John Connor's father. I know, shocking, did not see that coming. But seriously, that's a mindfuck. You know, to recruit this guy and train him and, you know, fight alongside him for years, knowing he's your father, knowing you're gonna have to send him to his death, and you can't tell him. John, why'd you bring me all the way out here just to have a beer? Shouldn't we be preparing for that raid on Skynet? You made that sound kind of important. Kyle, can't you just enjoy the moment for once? Well, I mean, yeah, okay, dude, are you crying? No, I just got something in my eye, man. Cats in the cradle and the silver... And that's Terminator. One of the best movies ever made, hands down. Certainly one of the best movies to come out of the 80s. And as I said before, it was highly successful. It spawned an entire media franchise. Comic books, novels, toys, a short-lived TV series, and of course a shit ton of sequels. Some of which are just masterpieces of cinematic excellence. Others are total dog shit, and some are actually highly underrated and worth a second look. And while researching for this review, I discovered some deleted scenes, which was shocking to me. I mean, I know every movie has deleted scenes, that's just part of the filmmaking process. I didn't know that they had been made public, or that they had any significance to the story. Usually, deleted scenes are just, you know, different takes or pieces of dialogue that aren't important to the story, but they actually cut some interesting stuff from the movie. There's one scene in the police station where Lieutenant Traxler, who's now dying, is convinced that Reese is telling the truth and tells him that he has to do whatever it takes to protect Sarah, which, I mean, like, okay, we know that. That's what he was doing before y'all got in his way. I'm glad they took that out, because that's just stupid. You know, we don't need a background character to validate Reese's story. We believed it from the beginning. There was no reason not to. But then another thing they cut out that I wish they hadn't was this entire sequence where Sarah gets the idea to blow up Cyberdyne, which is the company that would go on to make Skynet.
We can 86 the bastard. We can blow it up, it'll never happen.
No, it's tactically dangerous.
And I find this interesting, one, because we get a great moment with Reese where we kind of dive into his tortured psyche.
I don't belong here. I wasn't meant to see this. It's like a dream. This and this and you. So beautiful. It hurts, Sarah. It hurts so bad. You can't understand. It's gone. All gone. All of it. It's gone.
Well, we can change it, Kyle. We have to at least try.
And then two, it kind of fills in just a few gaps with the plot. I mean, the movie's fine by itself, but there's a few things that make just a little more sense if you add these scenes in. Like, for example, they weren't building those pipe bombs to fight the Terminator. They were building them to blow up Cyberdyne. And they didn't just randomly show up at that robotics factory. That was their destination. Arnie just followed him there. And of course, that robotics factory was Cyberdyne. Which, of course, if you've seen the sequel, then you know that Skynet pretty much invents himself. Yeah, it's called the grandfather paradox, and quantum physicists will tell you that it doesn't work. But it's just a movie. Don't ask questions, just sit back and enjoy it. And lastly, there's one line of dialogue that puts to rest a point of frustration that I've had for a very long time. I remember the first time that I watched T2 Judgment Day, and this scene just irked the shit out of me.
I made him memorize it up in the future as a message to her. Never mind. Now, okay. The whole thing goes. The future's not set. There's no fate but what we make for ourselves.
Because that's not what he said. He said this.
Son gave me a message to give to you. Made me memorize it. Thank you, Sarah, for your courage through the dark years. I can't help you with what you must soon face except to say that the future is not set. You must be stronger than you imagine you can be. You must survive or I will never exist.
But when you look at this deleted scene...
We can change it, Kyle. We have to at least try. There's no fate but what we make for ourselves, right?
Now it makes sense. What doesn't make sense is why James Cameron would reference a line of dialogue from the previous movie that never made it into the final cut. I don't know. Bottom line is, this is one of the movies that defined my childhood. It cemented my love for Arnold Schwarzenegger, and it still holds up today. It's an undeniable classic. Yeah, I know the visual effects are dated. They're just a product of their time. I don't think that visual effects should be the standard that a movie's greatness is measured by. I mean, the visual effects in the Ten Commandments are hokey and ridiculous by today's standards, but it's still considered one of the greatest films ever made. Well, I honestly could go on about this movie all day long, but I think I've said everything I need to say. So, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.